Today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2022. Um, it's also day 416 of WebDev, and today the plan is to create a navigation bar that has like about 3 to 4 buttons that just, when clicked on, changes the background color, just different colors on the page. So I'll be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so let me just start with the doc type. So I'll do doc type HTML to let the browser know that I'm writing in HTML5. Then I'll put in my HTML tags, and then I'll put in my head tags, right? Because there's two main tags, the head and the body. And then inside the body tags, it's anything that I put in the body tags is what I'm going to see on the screen, while anything I put in the head tag is kind of like backend information. That's not like any visual design. It's just information for the computer to know like where to get things from, or like where did you get the fonts from, and just backend information. But the body is the front end, what you basically see. So the first thing I'll do is create. I'm not gonna do anything that crazy. So I'll just do a div class and then I'll give it a nav bar for the navigation bar. And then my navigation bar is going to have or contain a list of links. And so I would need a list. So I'm going to do an unordered list, so UL. And that just basically contains a list of with bullet points that's like not ordered, right? It's not numbered, it's just bullet points. And each list would have a list item, and I would want my list item to be an A tag that leads to nowhere. So this is the hyper reference for the tag, the A tag. So when I click on the A tag, it's going to lead to wherever I put it. I could put like a website here and it would lead to that, but I'm going to put a hashtag there so it leads to nowhere because I'm not really going to do anything right now with that. I'm going to call it button for now, and I'm going to end my li. And then now I'm just going to take that and I'm going to copy it maybe 3 times, and I'm going to give these an ID. So I'll give this one ID hashtag BTN1 so that I could actually individually target these um, in JS later and in CS. All right, and that's it for my HTML. Now for the CSS, for the styling. Basically what I'll do is I'm going to start first by targeting the navigation bar, giving it a border so I could see what it's looking like. So 5 pixels solid on, let's do black lined border. So I should be able to see that. I'm going to give it a border radius of, let's say, 30 pixels so that it's round. Maybe 40 pixels would work better. And then let's see, I would probably give it a background of, let's say, this color over here. Where's my stuff? Okay. So I'll do hashtag and put that color in there. And then I'll go to the buttons. So um, usually I would give it a class. Actually, let me do that. So I'll give each A tag a class of links so that I can target just the class, like any elements that have the class of link, and be able to just address those here. So I could do dot link now, and any styles that I apply here will be applied to the A tags. All right, so I would want the background color of the links to be like this yellow over here, or like orange. Paste that in there. Then I would want to remove the underline. So I'll do text decoration, set that to none because right now it's set to underline. And then I would remove the blue color, so I'll change it to black. And then I'll give it some padding, like let's say 10 pixels top and bottom, 20 pixels left and right. And then I'll give it a border radius of like 20 pixels so that they're round. But then I also notice that there's a problem. Let's see, what did I miss here? Because there's another extra one over here. Oh, put an A, C there by accident. All right, beautiful. Okay. And then at this point, what I would do is have them be in the same row because right now they're in the same column. So for me, I would just target the nav bar UL. Let me give it a border so I could visualize this actually. Let's do maybe white. Okay, so that's the unordered list. So I just go by order, right? So I have my navigation bar, then comes a UL, then comes the list items, and then the A tags. So for me, I'm just targeting the UL, which holds all of the list items. So what I can do is I can give the UL a display of flex so that now the UL becomes a flex container. And by default, when a container is a flex container, it has the flex direction property set to row by default. So if we set that to column, it'll go back to having all the flex items, which are anything inside the flex container. So in this case, it would be the list items because they're inside the UL, and the UL is a flex container. So all of the list items will go to be in the same column, but by default, it's set to row. So even if I remove this, it'll just stay the same because again, it's set to row. Now, I noticed there's bullet points, as I was saying earlier, so to get rid of those are actually a list item property. So I'll target the navbar ULLI. So again, I'm going in order. I see the navbar, the UL, and then the LI. So for me, I would just set the list style property and set that to a value of none so that it removes the bullet points. And then what I can do is I can center the buttons in the middle. So the way I would do that is I would go to the UL and I'll just do justify content center, and that's going to center the items horizontally or the content horizontally. And then what I'll do is I'll give it a gap of 2 EM. So that's equivalent to, I think, 60. Okay, hold up. 32 pixels? Yeah, because 1 EM is 16. And that's going to give some gap in between the list items, right? The flex items, which are the list items. Okay, so then at this point, maybe I could give this a padding of 10 pixels so that they're within the container a little bit. Okay, and then let's see, now I would want to center the navigation bar itself in the middle of the page. So what I'll do is I'll go to the body, okay, and I'll give that a display of flex, and then do justify content center to move it to the right, so towards the center. And then I'll do align item center, and that's going to do nothing because currently if I give this a border, I'll see that the body actually does not have a height. Well, it does have a height, but the minimum, it's basically the height of the minimum content. So it's going to stop right there, but I need it to be the full screen so that it actually goes to the center vertically, right? Just like that. So yeah, now I can remove that border there. And then I could also remove the border for the navigation bar. And what's the other one? The UL. All right, and that's the buttons. Super cute, super nice. Now, I'm going to move on to the actual JavaScript part. So each button, when I click on it, it's going to change the background color of the body. So let's see. Maybe I want some colors that match. So how about, is this like considered green or blue? I don't even know what color to call this. What color is, when in doubt, Google it. Dark blue. Okay, I guess. So let's do dark blue. So I'll change this one to dark blue. All right. And then what's another color that would go with this? Maybe, what do you call that? Burgundy? But that would kind of mess around with, no, that wouldn't be good. Let's do this one, maybe like, what do you call that? Like peach? I don't know. What color is light yellow? Makes sense, makes sense. Light yellow. And then what would be another one that I could do? What would go with that color? I think I'm just gonna go with black. All right, and then now when I click on the buttons, the goal is to have the background color change to whatever, color it says there. So that's where JavaScript comes in. So first of all, I actually have to target or access each of the buttons. So luckily for me, I gave all of the buttons or the A tags an ID of just like whatever, so BTN1, BTN2, BTN3. So what I can do is I can go to JS, right? And I can be like, create a variable. I'm going to call it button1, or I could just do BTN1 and then access it from the DOM. So again, the document actually, is the DOM. And the DOM is basically the copy of your HTML that the browser makes. And so, JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, and that's why it needs to work with objects. And so what the browser does, it just makes a copy of your HTML, which are which are just like a whole bunch of elements, and turns those elements into objects, or also known as the nodes. And so then JavaScript is now like able to access those objects because again, JavaScript only works with objects, right? In this case, with that conversion. And so now because the elements are objects, JavaScript can work with those objects. And so I can access it through the document, the DOM, which is the copy, right? That holds the browser's copy of your HTML, which holds your object. So now I can use a function like get element by ID and just put in the ID of the object that I want. So btn1. And then now, if like, let's say I want to change what it says real quick, I can change its inner HTML, which is the text inside over here, right? This, whatever. So actually it's the dark blue one, and I can change it to something like hello, and then it'll be able to change there, like that, right? So that's just an example, but I'm gonna do this for the other two buttons. I'll just paste that in, change it to btn2, btn3, and over here btn2, btn3. And then now that I have all the buttons selected, I would also want to select the body because that's what I'm going to be changing. So I'll do a variable, call it, let's say background, and I'll do document. So again, I'm accessing the DOM. I'm using a function get element by ID, and I'm going to call it actually, it doesn't have an ID, so that's another case. So there's another function called query selector, and it basically returns the first tag that you specify here. So if I want the body, it's going to return to me the first body it sees. Now, it wouldn't make sense in this case because there's always going to be one body, but let's say I put like an A tag here. There's obviously multiple A tags, but what it's going to return to you is this first A tag over here. So it always just returns to you the first type of tag that you mentioned here that it sees, right? So now we got all our variables together, and so now comes the fun part. So I'm going to create a function. So I'll do a variable, and I'll call it on button click, and then I guess for this one I'll just do 1, and then I'll set it equal to a function, and then let's see. In the function, what do I want to happen? So again, it's dark blue. So when I click on it, I expect the background color to change to dark blue. So I'll do body dot style, not body, background dot style, because I'm accessing the CSS property. So I need to do style and then the CSS properties background and then set it equal to that color, which I literally lost. Oh, it's this one. Okay, over here. All right. All right, paste that in there, make sure the hashtag's in there, and then nothing's gonna happen. So, um, maybe I should just finish this one. So then in order to call this function, I'll basically grab the btn1, so the thing that I want, or like the button that I want to, click on, and then I'll add an event listener. And so there's two parameters. There's like how you want the event to happen. So do you want the function to get called when you click once on the button? Do you want the function to get called when you click twice on the button? Right? I think if I spelled that wrong, sorry, but that's kind of it. I wanted the function to be called when I click once on the button. So I'm going to put on the event handler click, right? I'm going to put that there. And then the second would be the actual function that I want to get called, which is on button click 1, right? And then that's literally it. Let me save that, and that should work. Beautiful. So now when I click on dark blue, it turns the background color to dark blue. Now let's see. Now let me do the same thing for the light yellow. So basically I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'll write it once and then I'll just copy and paste it for the last one. All right, so I'm going to do a variable. I'm going to call it on button click to, not a variable, I'm sorry, a function. And this is the function that's going to get passed when I click on the second button, right? And then basically I keep saying body, it's supposed to be background. So the background is the body, right? So I'm selecting the background and I'm selecting its style and I'm selecting its background CSS property, and I'm setting it equal to this color over here. Paste that in there. And now if I click on it, nothing's going to happen because I haven't told the JS how I want this to be called, right? So the way you do that is by selecting the button, right? Again, you add an event listener. So I like to think of it as like the button is listening, it's like waiting for it to get called. And the way it's going to get called is by the first parameter when I click on it once, right? And then the function that is going to get called would be on button click 2. So just to reiterate, right, the button is waiting to do something, it's listening for something, it's listening to when it has to like call this function, and that is when you click on it. So there's different other methods. There's like mouse up when you move your mouse up or move your mouse down, or when you double click on the button. But for me it's just click. I'm going to click once and then it's going to call this function. It's listening for that, for like this, it's like waiting for this to happen and then it's going to call the function. So that's how I like to think of it. So now if I save that, light yellow, beautiful. Okay, now I'm literally going to copy this because I'm not writing this again. All right, paste that in there. Just change that to unbutton click 3. And then I just have to get, oh, it's black. I could just say black. And then let's see, unbutton click 3, and then 3. Save that. And now if I click on it, beautiful. And if I click on all of them, they all work, which is pretty cool, right? Yeah, and that's literally it for today. I'm gonna go now. Bye.